All right, thank you guys. And following Sunday's sports wagering action, we're 5-1 with a push in our last $7.99 daily best plays on Pt.2. And the link for today's $1.99 daily best play is in the description section below. $1,000 bettors are up over $3,500 during that span. Now, if you're not signed up for that package on my safe and secure website, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll explain a little bit more about it in just a moment. But before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick time out and welcome you to the video. My name is Brock Page and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. I also sell my personal bets on Pt.2. And I have packages on that website starting at just $1.99. Now, the purpose of these YouTube videos is to provide you with free informational sports betting content, and it's also designed to generate interest in signing up for a membership on my website. Now, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my webpage. Well, what I do here on YouTube is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sport, side and total, or most of the games at least. And what I do on my website is, well, I actually share with you which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some action here, some college basketball action. We're going to start in the Big 12. I'm talking about West Virginia taking on Oklahoma, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off on Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Oklahoma's -6.5, totals 136. Now, the Sooners have played fantastic defense at home this season. They're allowing just 61 points a game in the Lloyd Noble Center. And they're limiting their competition to just 29% shooting from three-land there. Now, scoring-wise, on the other end of the court, Tanner Groves is averaging over a dozen points a game. He also does a pretty nice job shooting from three-land. Meanwhile, Umoja Gibson, he scores 11 points a game himself, along with a couple of rebounds. Now, when it comes to shooting the basketball, the Sooners are in the top 35 in the country in offensive field goal percentage. They're taking on a West Virginia team who allows way too many points on the road. These guys are giving up over 77 points a game when traveling, and they've recorded just one victory as the official road team this year. The Mountaineers currently find themselves on a 6-game losing streak, and they've won just one ball game since January 11th. Now, total-wise, West Virginia is 9-1 to the over as the official road team, 11-2 to the over in all of their contests away from home. No real surprise there because, like I said, these guys give up way too many points when traveling. Meanwhile, Oklahoma, on the other side of things, they're averaging nearly 77 points a game in their last 10 meetings with West Virginia. They also went 60% to the over in their last 10 contests this season as well. I'm going to lean toward Oklahoma -6.5 in the over 136. Next contest, it is going to be Duke versus Pitt, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Duke's -14 on the road, totals 136.5. But as bad as Pitt's been here this season, Duke's actually had a tough time covering the number over the past handful of weeks. They failed to cover against the likes of Virginia, Wake Forest, and Boston College. They're also just 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 meetings with the Panthers. And although Duke really doesn't do much wrong, they are making just 67% of their free throws on the road. That could be important, in crunch time towards the end of the game. That back door is always open when Duke's getting fouled and they're not making their foul shots. Now, they're taking on a Pittsburgh team who won 3 out of their last 5. And that includes a 9-point victory over UNC during that stretch. And as pitiful as Pitt's been with the ball in their hands this year, these guys do play some pretty tough defense at home. It's tough enough defense to still kind of keep them in ball games, or at least keep them within 14 points. The Panthers are allowing only 65 points a game in the Peterson Event Center. And they're amongst the better defensive rebounding teams in the ACC. Now, scoring-wise, John Hughley is scoring over 14.5 points per contest, along with 8 rebounds. Meanwhile, Jamarius Burton, he's scoring a dozen points a game himself, along with 3 boards and 2.5 assists. And when it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of Pitt's last 4 got over the posted number. Meanwhile, Duke saw overs recently against Syracuse, Florida State, and Clemson. I'm going to lean toward the Pitt Panthers plus 14 in the over 136.5. Next matchup, Big East action. I'm talking about Kansas versus TCU. And not on our big screen behind me for some reason, but that is going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Kansas is -6, totals 144.5. But despite being favored by a couple possessions on the road here, the Jayhawks are coming fresh off a double-digit loss to Baylor, where they gave up 80 points. Matter of fact, the Jayhawks have had a pretty tough time covering the point spread on the road this season. These guys actually have a losing record against the spread away from their home court. Now, another thing to add here, the Jayhawks are allowing 72 points per contest as the road team. So as good as they've been, you can certainly score against them when they travel. Now, they're taking on a TCU team who's 11-4 straight up in their own building, and they're covering in 60% of those home games. Mike Miles scoring over 15 points a game, along with 3 rebounds and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Emmanuel Miller, he's averaging 10.5 points a game himself, along with 6 boards. And when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Horned Frogs are limiting their opponents to just 64 points a game at home. Now, total-wise, 6 out of these teams' last 10 head-to-head meetings did get over the number. TCU's also 8-2 to the over in their last 10 ball games this season as well. Meanwhile, Kansas on the other side saw overs against the likes of Baylor, Kansas State, and Oklahoma. I'm going to lean toward TCU plus 6 in the over 144.5. Next contest, little SEC action. I'm talking about Florida versus Vanderbilt, 8:30 p.m. East. Vandy's -2 at home, totals 135.5. And although this is a super short number, you still got to think about the fact that Vandy covered the point spread in their last 8 straight. Once again, I know that's a tiny number there, but you can't disregard the fact that these guys are covering machines. Now, when it comes to defensive play at home, there's really not many in the SEC who do it better than the Commodores. Vandy's limiting their competition to just 64 points a game at Memorial Gym, and they're holding them to just 29% shooting from 3-land there. Now, scoring-wise, Scottie Pippen Jr. is averaging over 20 points per contest, along with 3 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Jordan Wright, he's scoring nearly 12 points a game himself, along with 6 rebounds and a couple assists as well. Now, they're taking on a Florida team who lost 6 of 9 on the road this season, and they score only 67 points a game in those contests. And once again, guys, even though this is a very short number, the Gators failed to cover in 6 out of their last 8 ball games. So I really don't want to disregard either team's current trends with regard to the point spread. Now, total-wise, Florida saw overs recently with Georgia, Arkansas, and Oklahoma State. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt, on the other side of things, they went 8-1 to the over in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward Vanderbilt -2 in the over 135.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Michigan State versus Michigan, and that's going to be an 8:30 Eastern start time. The Michigan Wolverines are -3, totals 141.5. Now, Michigan did win 9 out of their last 13 at the Chrysler Center, and they're making nearly 50% of their field goals there. Hunter Dickinson's officially 55% from the field. He's also averaging over 17.5 points per contest. Meanwhile, Eli Brooks, he's making 40% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging 12 points a game. Now, when it comes to defensive play, the Wolverines are in the top 5 in the nation in defensive boards at home. They're also holding their competition to just 29% shooting from 3-land in their own building. Now, they're taking on a Michigan State team who struggles offensively on the road. The Spartans are averaging only 67 points a game in their travels. And they actually lost 5 out of their last 7 ball games at any location. Now, when it comes to covering the point spread, Sparty failed to cover in 6 out of their last 8 ball games. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, Michigan State saw their last 2 straight fall under the line. They were also 60% to the under in their last 10. Meanwhile, Michigan on the other side of things, they saw unders recently with Rutgers, Ohio State, and Purdue. I'm going to lean toward the Michigan Wolverines -3 and the under 141.5. Next matchup, a little more Big Ten action. It is going to be Purdue versus Wisconsin, 9 p.m. Eastern start time. Purdue's -3 with the total at 148. And even though this is another pretty short number, the Boilermakers have been terrible covering the point spread recently. Not going to sugarcoat it. They're not covering a lot of numbers here. They failed to cover in their last 5 straight, and they're actually covering in only 33% of their road games this year. And as dominant as these guys have been on the offensive end of the court, Purdue's shooting just 67% from the stripe on the road. Now they're taking on a Wisconsin team who's 11-3 straight up at the Kohl Center, and they're currently in the middle of a 4-game winning streak. Johnny Davis, he's averaging 20.5 points per contest, along with 8 rebounds and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Brad Davison is averaging over 14 points a game himself, along with 4 boards and a couple assists as well. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Badgers give up just 65 points a game in their own arena. When it comes to the total in this one, Wisconsin went 60% to the under in their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, Purdue saw 4 out of their last 5 fall under the line themselves. Unders against the likes of Michigan State, Northwestern, and Maryland. So with all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the underdog Wisconsin Badgers +3 and the under 148. Next matchup, it is going to be not on our big screen. No, not on our big screen, but it is going to be San Jose State versus Air Force, 9 p.m. Eastern start time. Air Force is -5 with the total at 128.5. And as bad as San Jose State has been this year, well, Air Force lost their last 9 straight, and they haven't won a game since January 25th. Now, the Falcons are absolutely terrible on the offensive end of the court. These guys are scoring just 59 points a game, and they're amongst the worst in the country in offensive boards. They're taking on a San Jose State team who's been really good against the number on the road despite their current record. The Spartans are covering in 62% of their road games, and they're actually doing a pretty decent job shooting from 3 land. And as a matter of fact, Omari Moore is making 44% of his 3-pointers this year. He's also scoring 13 points a game. Meanwhile, Trey Anderson, he's making 45% of his 3 balls. He's also averaging nearly double-digit points a game as well. Now, the Spartans have covered the point spread recently against the likes of New Mexico, Nevada, and San Diego State. When it comes to the number in this one, the Spartans also saw unders recently against the likes of New Mexico, Wyoming, and Fresno State. Meanwhile, Air Force on the other side of things, they saw their last 2 straight fall under the line themselves, 60% to the under in their last 10. I'm going to lean towards San Jose State +5 and the under 128.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Arizona versus USC. That's going to be an 11 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Arizona's -5.5 on the road. Total's 151. Now, the Wildcats are coming fresh off a stunning 16-point loss to Colorado. They were actually held to just 63 total points in that ball game. So these guys are human. You haven't seen it much this year because they've been dominant, but they are human. Now, the Wildcats also failed to cover the point spread in 5 out of their last 8, with failures to cover coming against the likes of Oregon, Oregon State, and Arizona State during that span. And when it comes to defensive play in this one, as good as they've been, well, Arizona allows nearly 72 points per contest when they travel. They're taking on a USC team who's been really tough to beat at home this year. The Trojans are 13-2 straight up at the Galen Center, and they've gotten the W in 8 out of their last 9 at any location. Now, the Trojans are incredibly tough on the defensive end of the court. These guys allow just 64 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in the nation in defensive field goal percentage. Now, scoring-wise, Isaiah Mobley's averaging over 14.5 points per contest, along with 8 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Drew Peterson, he's making 44% of his 3-pointers. He also scores 12.5 points a game. Now, when it comes to rebounding the basketball, USC's in the top 20 in offensive boards per contest. When it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of USC's last 4 got over the line. They also saw overs recently against Oregon, Oregon State, and Washington. Meanwhile, Arizona saw 4 out of their last 7 get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward USC plus 5.5 in the over 151. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Pt.2. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on Pt.2, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And if you want to get access to every single bet that I give out on that webpage, you may want to think about signing up for my board member tier package, where board members get access to every single bet that I give out on that website. It's an all-inclusive package. You get access to every single package that I offer. You get absolutely everything. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Monday or Tuesday to you, depending on when you're watching this. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at Brockpage.com.